Hello, everyone. I'm Dorothea Howard. I'm the host of Let's Talk Sarcoidosis. Today in the studio, we have Linda Lanier. She's the president of Sarcoidosis Awareness Network. Thank you so much for being in the studio on this cold day.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you being here today and giving the audience, the viewers, a wealth of information and sharing your story. So I'm going to start out with the first question, Linda. When were you diagnosed with sarcoidosis?
I was diagnosed in 1979 at 19 years old.
Wow.
I was here going to school, and I was actually getting ready to have major dental surgery. And they just said, you know, whenever you have major surgery, you have to take a chest x-ray.
Right.
And they said, you know, you have sarcoidosis?
Wow.
And I said, no. Nobody told me it was serious. Nobody told me, well, you know, you really need to go see about that. I just went and had my surgery, went about my business. About a year later, I was on the way home, and I was on the bus, and all of a sudden, every time I breathed, I couldn't move. So I got off the bus, and I caught a cab to GW Hospital, and that's when I heard sarcoidosis again. And that's when they told me, you know, you need to go see a specialist.
Right.
So I go see the specialist, but he really didn't know that much. He was a pulmonary specialist, but didn't know that much about sarcoid. So back then, he had me on like Tylenol number 4.
Oh my goodness.
He had me on all kind of, you know, heavy controlled drugs. He didn't give me an inhaler. He didn't put me on prednisone. And so it was able to maneuver in my body without me knowing.
Right.
And I didn't get attention, the proper attention, probably to about the next 6 months.
Okay.
And I was in the hair salon where I worked. And a lady found out that I had sarcoidosis. She said, you need to go to Howard University Hospital. She said, there's a doctor up there named Dr. Roscoe Young, and he's been all over the world, you know, treating sarcoidosis. And I went up to the hospital. She got an appointment. I went up there, and he took a look at my chest x-ray, and I was in the hospital for 2 weeks.
Really?
And that's when I found out that I had multi-system, and it had just gone through my body just that fast.
And well, it's a good thing that you went to that hospital so he could get you the help that you need.
But I can remember being on Howard's campus, having trouble walking upstairs because the campus is very hilly, or friends, you know, in the room, people, they might be smoking, and I would be coughing. And what's wrong with you?
Right.
So, I don't know. I'm just,
Did you have that dry cough?
That's what it was.
Yes,
that's
that
what it
annoying
was.
dry cough.
Yes, that's what it was.
Oh my goodness. Well, can you summarize your experience that led to your, you know, definite diagnosis?
Well, the definite diagnosis definitely came when the lady made the appointment for me to go to Howard Hospital. And then Dr. Young, he did a thorough examination, and I also had the bronchoscopy, so then I knew. But then at that time, at 19 years old, you know, they're telling me you have the lungs of a 70-year-old woman. You know, and how do you tell a 19-year-old that?
Right.
You know, what do I do with that information?
Yes.
Right. So I stayed a patient at Howard Hospital for many years because they had doctors that really were into research and everything, and so every part of my body where there's sarcoidosis, that's where it was found at Howard University Hospital.
Well, thank God for that.
Yes.
Because you know how many people that are misdiagnosed with the illness? Well, we both know that.
Yes.
So how did the diagnosis actually change your life?
Well, I worked for a long time. I was able to continue working and, you know, because I was young and, you know, just going with my life. But then things started to happen when I got to around age 30. And I didn't have my first child till around that time. And I got pregnant, and I've always read, well, if you get pregnant, sarcoid will go in remission. So I didn't think nothing about it.
Didn't happen to me.
I went ahead and had my, you know, I'm having my baby and everything. So I got a cold, and it got really, really bad. So I went up to the hospital. And that's when they told me, they said, well, why are you pregnant? And I'm like, what are you talking about? They said, you should not you should not be pregnant. And I was like, well, nobody told me not to get pregnant. And because it was so much, I have lost so much elasticity, there wasn't enough room for the baby
to grow. Yep.
Right. So I carried him full term, taking 20 milligrams of prednisone.
The whole time?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Every day.
You were definitely blessed.
Yes. And after that, I worked maybe another year and a half, and then I had to stop working. Yeah. The doc. I was in the hospital after a flare up, and the doctor came in my room one day, and he just leaned on the little counter, and he said, "I just want to ask you a question." He said, "How do you make it through the day?" And I was like, "What?" He said, "How do you get up in the morning and function?" He said, "Because I'm looking at your paperwork here." And he said, "And I don't understand how you're able to function." And that's when he told me how very sick I was.
Wow.
You know, but I never went into remission.
Right.
So, you know, that's when they started talking about lung transplants. And but if you're not in remission, that's not going to put you at the top of the list.
Right. And, you know, you said something very important about pregnancy term and having sarcoidosis, because I feel that people should talk to the doctors about that, because I had the opposite effect of what you had. I mean, I actually had problems of carrying my daughter when, you know, diagnosed with sarcoidosis, and my pregnancy was actually terrible. But thank God that everything turned out the way it should. But during my pregnancy, during the 7th month, because of me having sarcoidosis, they can't say if that's what actually caused it, but the complications of the pulmonary sarcoidosis, I had a pneumothorax.
Okay.
So I was really in a lot of pain. When that, you know, when that happened to me, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen, but praise God, you know, I never lost the oxygen. My daughter never lost the oxygen. So today I call her my miracle baby.
I understand.
Yes.
Because when I walked in the hospital that day, my oxygen level was 20%. Was at 20%.
Oh, yes. So that's why, you know, with that, that's a great subject to talk about, because people really need to talk to their doctors. Now, everybody is different, as we both know,
Right.
because we had different, you know, types of
Right.
experiences. But you need to know that these things can happen and not think that they won't happen to you.
Exactly.
And so living with a permanent disability, because you did mention that, it must be difficult. You know, I'm sure it is. Now, how have you been able to maintain optimum health in spite of having sarcoidosis?
Well, I decided that I wasn't going to let this disease take me over.
Right.
You know, so I started looking into different holistic treatments, and I just got into the books and just started reading. And then I started taking flaxseed and working on the inflammation.
Okay.
And I just made a choice to live.
Right.
I just made a choice to live, because through this journey, I've lost so many friends.
Right.
They had passed.
Wow.
And I was determined, because I had a baby.
Oh, I know that feeling.
You know, I had to live for my baby.
Oh, I know that feeling.
You know, so I took prednisone because I've never been in remission. So although I was taking the prednisone, I still was doing other holistic things.
Right.
But I always tell people, because it's working for me, may not necessarily work for you, because as we all know, sarcoidosis is like a snowflake. No two cases are alike.
That's absolutely true.
You know, we can take the same dose of medicine. It'll work for me. It won't work for you.
Absolutely.
You know, the other thing I did was I had a good support circle, you know, with my friends and family, you know, and that helped me. That helped me a lot. But you know, and when I had to stop working, I was resistant to it.
Right.
But it actually helped me.
Right. Because you needed that time to actually heal. And,
Yes.
you know, when I listened to your story, we both had that same motivation for our children.
Yeah.
Because when I was initially diagnosed, my daughter was 5 years, my oldest daughter now, she was only 5. So I looked into her eyes and I said, oh, no, not me. You know, I am definitely going to beat this, and I'm going to keep on trying to find out as much information as I can. And with prayer and that, hey, I'm still here trying to do everything that I can do to help other people.
And when the discussion of double lung transplant came up,
that's scary.
Okay, I've got a 1-year-old. So what safeguards can you give me? You know,
right?
And they couldn't. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna ride this thing out.
I hear you.
And just by the grace of God, I just been riding it out, and I've been doing fine. I have ups and downs, but I've been doing all right.
Right. So you're managing.
Yes.
Right. And that's what we have to do. You know, everybody that's watching, just don't give up. That's the whole thing.
That's important.
Just don't give up. You know, sometimes it's hard, I'm sure, to say that and be in someone else's shoes, but you got to think positive with this illness that we have.
Well, I had to make adjustments because, you know, having a young child and I always tell people the best thing of it was I could, you know, as my son got older, I was always home when he left in the morning. I was home when he got home. But, you know, I could go to his little sporting activities and stuff like that. But at the same time, there were a lot of things I could not do. Because I got pregnant after the diagnosis. So as far as he knew, you know, his mommy was just like a little doll. She was just broken. You know, she was broken. But like I said, I had a good support
system. Which is definitely something that's needed too. And
when my friends went on vacation, they called up, pack your son up. He going with us. You know, so what more could I ask for?
And everybody's not blessed with that support system.
No, they're not.
You know, everybody doesn't have that. And you founded Sarcoidosis Awareness Network in 1999. So tell us about the organization and your mission.
I started the Sarcoidosis Awareness Network, number one, because I kept getting phone calls. People kept calling me. You know, I was referred to you by somebody. They say you know all about it. And I was collecting information. Dr. Young at Howard Hospital used to give me stuff all the time. So I would constantly read research papers and stuff. And so I started, I had a library in my house. So people started calling and I was like, you know, Lord, I'm just gonna, it seemed like you set me up to do some work. So, you know, I'm just gonna do this. So I started the Sarcoidosis Network, and what the Sarcoidosis Network does is to focus on empowerment. About empowerment for sarcoidosis survivors, also to educate the population about the disease, the characteristics, and its effect on our lives and in the community. So that's basically what I do. Yeah, God did not give me He did not give me a charge to do a support group. You know, so that's. I just focus on health and wellness and education.
And that's great because we need it. We need it globally.
Yes.
You know, we need it globally. So what are your thoughts of the current state of sarcoidosis?
Well, the current state of sarcoidosis, I feel that a whole lot more could be done. You know, we just don't have the money. You know, and by not being a reportable disease, we don't have the statistic numbers. You know, I think that we could be a lot further than we are as far as research. But goes back to that major question, what is it? Nobody knows what it is.
That's true.
And until you determine the epidemiology and etiology of a disease, then how you going to get a cure for it? You don't know.
If you don't even know
you
what
know,
it is.
so it's kind of discouraging, but, you know, I'm just praying that I see it in my lifetime that something, we would get close to a cure.
And I'm with you on that one. Now, there are a lot of viewers that see the show. So what advice would you give someone that has been newly diagnosed with the illness?
If you're newly diagnosed, the first thing you need to do is once you absorb it.
That's the thing. It's like getting it in your head, like, what is this?
Begin to educate yourself. Because from that point on, you are going to be your own personal health advocate. You got to advocate for yourself. Because when I was diagnosed, like I said earlier, the doctor didn't say, well, you know, this is serious and, you know, you need to avoid this. And they're not going to tell you. So education is the key. The second thing is to reduce your stress level. Immediately, because sarcoidosis is motivated by stress. and get a good support circle. You know, I usually tell people, draw a circle. Draw that circle. People that are crucial to your existence. Those people are inside.
Right.
Everybody else, they outside the circle.
That's right.
And keep it like that.
That's right. I definitely agree with that, because that's one thing about this illness, or any illness. Stress is the #1 killer.
Yes.
So you don't allow that. And I'm like you with the circle. You either in my circle or you're out of it.
But you will find that a sarcoidosis survivor will, when they are under stress, Christmas time, or a tragedy in the family, or just the hustle and bustle, the car breakdown, and you'll start not feeling well.
Right.
And
you're so right.
When that happens, you got to take a step back.
Yes, you do.
You need to take a step back and just try to regroup.
Right. And you know what I've noticed, and I've been through it myself, sometimes when you have those stressful situations, whether it's friends, close friends, or family members, sometimes you have to know when to cut them out. I mean, some people are afraid to cut out, but when it's your life and it's your health, then you need to do what you have to do to make sure that you're going to stay on this earth and not have all these stressful situations bringing you down. So I don't apologize for me cutting anybody that does me a harm.
Right.
As far as stress, and you know that as well. So why so much focus on health and wellness for a sarcoidosis survivor?
Because I got frustrated trying to find money and knocking on doors. I had a grassroots campaign, and my son and I, we were going door to door in Prince George's County, knocking on doors, telling people about sarcoidosis.
Wow.
I walked the halls up on the hill, and I just got tired. And then I started to think about, with the trials that they were doing, if your body is not in optimum health status, you will be excluded from the trial anyway. So the best thing I felt my contribution would be was to make sure that you, as a sarcoidosis survivor, were educated, you were eating right, your stress level is down, and just to teach you how to maintain optimum health.
Okay.
And if I could do that, because we don't know when this cure is going to come.
Absolutely. If it ever comes.
So when it comes, you want to be at your best.
That's true.
You want to be at your best. So that's why I focused on health and wellness.
Okay.
Because that's what's needed. That's what's needed.
So what are your tips for surviving sarcoidosis?
Tips for surviving sarcoidosis: #1, we already talked about stress. #2 is the diet. You should eat in the following order: fresh, frozen, canned. And I know to eat healthy is very expensive.
Yes.
It's hard.
Unfortunately,
it's hard.
Yes.
But just try. Just try to do it in that order. Because there are additives in canned foods and different things. We don't know what's setting it off.
Right.
So
I like those tips.
try cold water fish, your sesame seeds, oil. Follow a inflammation fighting diet, which you can find. And also to, even if it's just to sit in a chair and just swing your legs.
Right. Do something.
That's how weak I was at one time. That's the only thing I could do.
But you did it.
Yes.
Okay.
And just swing your legs.
Right.
And just keep a journal. Because oftentimes sarcoidosis survivors, they have short-term memory. And you're not going to remember some of the symptoms because they come and go so quickly. You can wake up and this leg is dragging or something, and by the time you get to the doctor, you're fine.
Right.
Write it down.
Okay.
Write it down. So when you go back to the doctor, well, this happened on this date. And, so start to keep track of it.
So you can have some accuracy in your life.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's important. So you've worked in the DMV community for many years now. What are your feelings on how sarcoidosis has affected the metropolitan area?
Well, what I found when I got the CDC Pew Environmental Trust grant, I found that sarcoidosis had affected African American women in this area at an alarming rate.
Okay.
And we called it the Save One Sister. It was called the Save One Sister. Oh, I can't think of it right now.
That's okay. You just explained it a few minutes ago, so that's okay.
It was SOS, Save One Sister campaign. Right. And the reason why that was set up was because by me being diagnosed in the beauty salon, I found out Mahalia Jackson
I've heard that too.
Had sarcoidosis. So I found her authorized autobiography and read it. And so that's what I used as the basis for my campaign.
Okay.
And so I put flyers out and posters out in the beauty salons. And when people came to get their hair done, I would talk to them about it. And almost, if you could talk to at least, I'd say if you can get 10 people in a room, somebody's going to know somebody with sarcoid.
There you go. That's
They're going to know somebody with sarcoid. And that's how I started to work with the community. Because, and that's how I started to keep records and build a registry on my own of, you know, all these people I was meeting with this disease. And I was like, something is going on here. So then I started venturing out into disease tracking.
Okay.
And because I believe that Prince George's County has a cluster. It's just not proven yet, but it's a cluster.
Right.
It's a cluster. And so I, you know, in keeping the registry, I took it up on the hill, showed it to people. And
I've been on Capitol Hill.
Oh, so you know.
I know it's.
You know that's like.
I've been on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
Haven't seen any changes, but I've been on Capitol Hill.
Right. And also, I also worked with the Saga study. And the Saga study was trying to determine why African Americans tend to get it in the family.
Okay.
That study took 10 years to do. But in order to fulfill the obligations for the study, we had to find subjects for the study. So I was involved in that. And that's how I started finding there was a lot of people here with sarcoidosis.
Well, thank God for you. So highlight some of the community milestones of the Sarcoidosis Awareness Network.
Well, one is participating in the World Conference, which...
And I'm familiar with that conference,
which was monumental. The other thing was I don't know why I got a nerve block today.
That's okay. It happens to the best of us every day. If it's not you, it'll be me. So I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I got sarcoid, so sometimes it comes
well,
and
that's
goes.
okay. So on that note, what is the hope for the sarcoidosis community?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just education.
Yes.
Education, health and wellness, because people are already struggling within the economic situation that we have going on now to eat right.
Yes.
You know, and be healthy. You know, but that must be put first and foremost.
Yes, exactly.
You have to do that because I find if you don't take care of yourself, sarcoidosis will.
Oh my goodness!
It'll
take care of you.
It will take you over.
It'll take you out.
Especially since it can maneuver in the body without symptoms. So you want to stay on top of that. And I always encourage people, you know, eat right, keep your stress level down, you know, reduce your stress. And just try to live a wholesome life. Just try to be happy and pray.
Oh, yes.
You got to have faith. You got to pray.
Got to do that first.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you have to do that first.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And I do believe that something is going to come. I just pray that it's in my lifetime.
And I'm sure it will. And we all hope that it does, you know, at some point.
I believe
feel
it's going to
good about
come.
it. Yes.
I do.
I do too.
I really do.
So, you know, believe it or not, the show, this was so much information, and I mean a wealth of information. So before we end the show, I mean, I really appreciate you being here today.
Oh.
What is the last thing you would tell the viewers of someone that may be just catching the show, or, you know, someone that's been following us along the whole 30 minutes of the episode? What words would you leave them with today?
that sarcoidosis is very prevalent in our community, and that we need to start the discussion and talking about it. Because if you start talking about it, especially among the women between the ages of 20 and 40 in your family, that's when that's when it's going to start to come out.
Right.
And we should be very vigilant about it, because if we let it just to fester and just keep gaining strength, it's going to take us over.
Oh, I definitely
So
agree
we have
with
to
that.
fight this. We have to fight this. We have to fight it.
And you're right. You know, this is why I encourage everyone who's watching the show. And I know sometimes it may be hard if they have the illness or someone in their family or friend or colleague. Come on the show. Talk about it. This is the only way we will continue spreading awareness. You know, I know some people may feel like I don't want to put all my business out there, but if you don't think of it like that and think of how your information that you share is helping maybe just one person.
Well, I chose to give my story because of that merry-go-round, the diagnosis merry-go-round that I was on. I didn't want that to happen to anybody else.
And I did not either. So thank you for being on the show. And as I always say when I end the show, we both have sarcoidosis, but sarcoidosis does not have us. And that's what I'm talking about. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay positive and stay
healthy.
Healthy. That's the key word right there. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, be blessed.